3 armed men, a highway ambush, nearly $2 million in gold, gone in seconds. That's the story 2 jewelry dealers told a 911 dispatcher on a cold February night. Within minutes, police from 3 separate towns were racing to the scene. They were hunting for robbers who never existed. It would take detectives almost 2 days to prove it. 2 days chasing a crime that never happened, while the truth sat hidden, waiting to be found. The 2 men thought they'd covered everything, but they made one mistake. This is the anatomy of a lie. It's one of the strangest kinds of crime there is. A robbery with no robbers, a victim who is actually the criminal, and a $2 million payday hidden in plain sight. And it almost worked. Here's how detectives took it apart, piece by piece. To understand the lie, you first have to hear the story they told. 2 jewelry dealers, a man and his son-in-law, were driving home from a jewelry show, their car loaded with gold. It was dark, the highway was quiet. And according to them, that's when everything went wrong. They said another car forced them to stop. 3 men jumped out, armed, faces covered. They pointed guns through the window and demanded everything. And in seconds, they said, the robbers were gone, vanishing into the night with a fortune in gold. The number they gave police was staggering. Between $1.5 and $2 million in jewelry, most of it 14-karat gold, gone in an instant. It was the kind of robbery that makes headlines. And it sent an entire region into high alert. In their version, it was terrifying. Trapped on the shoulder, headlights blinding them, 3 masked men closing in with guns drawn. They handed over everything, they said, certain they were about to die. It was a vivid, detailed, emotional account. And that level of detail would become part of their undoing. The police believed every word. But the 2 men had just made one mistake, and it was already sitting on a camera they never noticed. A report of an armed robbery this big triggers an all-out response. Officers, detectives, and emergency crews from 3 separate towns, Elmhurst, Bensonville, and Rosemont, flooded the area. Roads were checked, descriptions went out. Everyone was hunting for 3 armed men who had just pulled off a $2 million heist. For nearly 2 days, detectives worked the case around the clock. They treated it exactly like what it appeared to be, a violent, high-value armed robbery with dangerous suspects still on the loose. But the harder they looked, the less the story made sense. Then one detective pulled up the security footage from the jewelry show. And what he saw, or rather, what he didn't see, cracked the whole case open. Here's how a real highway robbery usually works. Thieves don't pick a target at random. They follow it. They watch, they wait, and they trail their victim, sometimes for miles. So detectives pulled the cameras from around the jewelry show, expecting to see a car tailing the 2 men as they left. But when they watched the footage, there was nothing. No suspicious car, no one following them, no one waiting. For a robbery that supposedly needed 3 armed men and careful planning, the setup simply wasn't there. And that was the first thread investigators started to pull. There was something else that didn't fit. Real robbery victims are shaken, disoriented, inconsistent in the way frightened people are. But a fabricated story tends to be too clean, too rehearsed, the details lining up a little too neatly. To trained detectives, a perfect story can be just as suspicious as no story at all.
possible lead. And as I said, and they're looking for evidence to support the claim that there was a robbery. And as time went on, they just found no evidence at all to support.
With the surveillance raising red flags, detectives went back to the very beginning, the 911 call. They compared what the men told the dispatcher that night to what they later told officers at the scene. And the two versions didn't match. Small details kept shifting, the kind of cracks that appear when a story is invented, not remembered. Then came the detail that revealed why. Investigators discovered the men had taken out an insurance policy just days earlier, the very week of the jewelry show. Suddenly the picture snapped into focus. This was never about being robbed. It was about collecting on a robbery that never happened. Piece by piece, the evidence stacked up against them. The missing surveillance, the shifting timeline, the brand new insurance policy taken out days before. Every pillar holding up their story was quietly pulled away. There was only one thing left to find, and it would end the case for good. The investigation led detectives straight to one of the men's homes. If the robbery was real, the gold would be long gone, sold, melted down, or shipped off. But inside that house was a safe. And what was sitting inside it would erase any doubt about what really happened. Picture the moment. Detectives standing in a quiet home, watching a man kneel down and turn the dial on his own safe. If the robbery was real, it would be empty. The door swings open, and there sits $2 million in gold that was reported stolen at gunpoint just days before. When they opened the safe, there it was. The $2 million in jewelry, the gold that was supposedly stolen at gunpoint, sitting safely at home the entire time. Faced with the evidence, the younger man finally admitted it. There was no robbery. There were no gunmen. They had made the whole thing up.
He was willing to take us to the house, and he actually assisted us in opening the safe and showed us the box that the...
Both men were arrested and charged with felony false reporting of a crime. And the cost of their lie was very real. 3 police departments had burned nearly 2 days chasing armed robbers who never existed, time stolen from real emergencies. As prosecutors put it, a false report like this doesn't just drain resources, it can send innocent people to jail for a crime that never happened. And there was one more twist. The 2 men weren't strangers or partners in some criminal ring. They were family, a father-in-law and his son-in-law. Staged crimes like this are more common than you'd think. Desperation, death, or simple greed convince people that one clean lie can solve everything. They rehearse the story. They believe they've thought of everything. But a lie has to account for every camera, every timeline, every word, and the truth only has to be itself. And they are far from the only ones. Staged robberies, faked burglaries, and phantom carjackings turn up in insurance files across the country every year. The script is almost always the same: a valuable item, a fresh policy, and a dramatic story of a crime that no camera ever caught. The difference between getting away with it and getting caught usually comes down to a single overlooked detail. So how do investigators tell a real victim from a false one? The answer is the same reason this lie fell apart. Every lie leaves the same fingerprints. It's too detailed in the places that don't matter, and too thin in the places that do. It depends on no one checking the cameras, no one comparing the timelines, no one asking the same question twice. And that's exactly where it breaks. Because reality leaves evidence and a lie only leaves the story. Two men tried to turn a lie into $2 million. Instead, they turned a comfortable life into felony charges, public mugshots, and a story that will follow them for years. The truth is patient. It waits in a security tape, in a safe, in a single question no rehearsed answer can survive. At the Axiom Lens, we don't just show you the crime. We show you the difference between the story someone tells and the truth the evidence reveals. If you saw through this one, subscribe. And next time someone's story sounds a little too perfect, you'll know exactly where to look.